New episodes of the I Know You Didn't Ask podcast are out every Monday and Friday, available wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. What is up, everybody? I'm your host, Megan O'Donnell, and this is I Know You Didn't Ask. Welcome back, weekend edition. I have an amazing episode coming up this week with the ladies from the Crime, Cocktails, and Bravo podcast. I went on their show a couple weeks ago, and we talked about Summer House, drama, obviously, Real Housewives of Rhode Island, and the Valley. And we're getting the gang back together for an episode on I Know You Didn't Ask about the same three topics. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that fabulous episode. You guys, I don't know if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, but I am wearing a Devil Wears Prada 2 inspired look. I'm wearing a pink sweater vest and a white collared shirt underneath, something that I would think an assistant at Vogue would wear. I'm going to an event on Monday with an advanced screening of it, and I'm so freaking excited. I mean, Anne Hathaway has been obviously taking over all of our feeds this week. She's back. I mean, deep plain facelift. She doesn't look a day over 19. And I feel like she's kind of in like a golden era right now. Obviously, she is in the 20-year reunion part 2 Devil Wears Prada movie that comes out like next week, I think. And, she's everywhere, on every carpet, every goddamn talk show, hyping up the movie, and just like looking easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. I did hear Anne Hathaway drop an inshallah, which is like a Arabic phrase for like if it's God's will or, God willing. So love to see that new arc in Anne Hathaway. It's giving Lindsay Lohan in Dubai with the fake Arabic accent, and I'm loving it. So, Anne, keep bringing that energy, and it's also been confirmed that Princess Diaries 3 is, quote, coming along, and they're saying that everybody has signed on to be in the third installment of this series, and of course, happy Anne Hathaway is there, but let's be real. I need a confirmation that Julie Andrews is involved, because if she's not, then you know what? I'm not going to be racing to the theater like I am for, Devil Wears Prada 2. I mean, if Meryl Streep wasn't in Devil Wears Prada 2, I don't know if I'd be so jazzed about seeing it. But everybody is dying for the new film. The marketing machine is working. Every second, I'm seeing a new premiere, a new red carpet. And you know what? We need something to get excited about. Us ladies need something in these trying times. And you know what? Devil Wears Prada 2 may just be the thing we've all been looking and waiting for. You guys, I saw Robbie Hoffman, the comedian, in a hotel lobby this week. I, of course didn't approach her because it's a hotel lobby. If you're in a hotel lobby, you're going somewhere, you're doing something. Nobody wants to be accosted by me, an annoying podcaster, with a shit-eating grin on my face. So, you know me, hobnobbing with the who's who of Hollywood. But season 5 of Hacks just came back out on HBO. Hacks is currently in its 5th season, and it's the confirmed final season, which is really sad. The show has won like 12 Emmys over the years, and I mean, it's been going on for about 6 years at this point. And when they created the show, it was pretty much well thought out from seasons 1 through season 5. There was a very coherent beginning, middle, and end to the show. And the writers knew that going into season 1, which I always really enjoy. Like in season 1, they knew exactly what the final scene will be for season 5. And I love Hacks. It can be a little, hacky, and some of the jokes, can fall flat, but this is a show where they're having like many jokes per minute, and it's very quick, and some are going to be misses and some storylines are going to be flops. Of course, it follows the relationship between Deborah Vance, who's this, older woman comedian who is like deeply successful, kind of like a Joan Rivers type. And then she ends up hiring Ava Daniels, who's like this young, liberal writer girl, Carol Radziwill adjacent. And she kind of starts coming into Deborah's world and like taking over her, career trajectory and kind of making her a little bit more modern. And you see kind of like the, relationship with them ebb and flow throughout the years. And it's like a very familiar relationship. So going into season 5, I'm like, ugh, the same song and dance. And I think, over the years, you see like Ava's trying to teach Deborah how to like, be more socially conscious and in a way like kind of tone down her behavior because she finds it to be too aggressive, and she finds her career desires and ambition to be like antiquated in a sense. But Deborah Vance is a bad bitch. Last season, she, had the big dramatic exit from her late night show, which is kind of like the pinnacle for comedians. Every day, a new late night show is being canceled. The rise of YouTube and podcasting has really changed the late night landscape. So people aren't like clamoring to have a late night show when you could be like Tim Dillon or whatever and have a show that like millions and millions and millions of people are watching every single week. Whereas like late night gets like such shitty ratings and there's so much work involved. The comedy landscape is just changing. And so it's interesting to watch that through the lens of Hacks and Deborah Vance's career. And of course, like being a woman in comedy has additional layers of complexity, which really allows for the characters to have like really interesting character development. And Hacks absolutely passes the Bechdel test, which is basically like a kind of cheeky metric for measuring representation of women in TV or books or anything, where the female storyline doesn't exclusively revolve around a man. It revolves around their careers and their families and moving and aging and perfectionism. And it kind of touches on a woman's experience in a way, again, that is like not entirely based around a man. Of course, there are men in this show, and Ava's a lesbian, so she extra passes the Bechdel test. But I love the show. I'm sorry, I absolutely adore it. I'm sad to see that this is going to be the final season, but I also think let's end a good thing early. Like, let's not get into season 9 of Hacks and we're kind of circling the drain with the same type of bullshit shenanigans that the two of them are up to. There were definitely a few moments in season 4 where I was watching and I'm like, really? These two are stuck in the woods and there's no cell phone service? Like, what are we doing here? This would have never happened. But again, I guess that's showbiz, that's storytelling. But anyways, can we talk about a show that has been going for too long? The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills season 15 is so boring. I watched most of the season today because I'm prepping for my episode with my girlies tomorrow. Granted, we're not talking about Beverly Hills, but I do feel like I just need to be like up to date on all of my shows. But I'm just finding it deeply boring. I think it's time for Kyle Richards to take a beat, start something new. And if her and Mauricio really end up breaking up, I hope she does take half of the agency, because then she really can just like be wealthy and do her own thing. And I think there's like probably a part of her that like would love to just like go off the grid and live in her house in Nashville with Morgan and just like live a simple life. But I do think she's just like drawn to the cameras and cannot stop attempting to be in the limelight, which is pretty bleak. But I think again, Housewives should take a little bit of a break. Come back with fresh eyes if you're invited back, or if you so choose to want to possibly come back. But I think it's time for her to go. I will say, I just wanted to pour one out for Jennifer Tilly's $40,000 sparkly Gucci bear purse. Obviously, money is not a thing for her. So $40,000 on a rhinestone purse like seems reasonable when we're speaking about Jennifer Tilly. She just has like a levity and a timing about her that I just really am energized about. And I feel like she needs to invite one or two of her wealthy, cool, kooky friends onto the show to be her sidekick. And we all know Sutton and her have a close friendship, but Sutton this past season, we all know she's been off, she's been on the wagon or off the wagon. I don't know, but she's been drinking less. She's feeling her feelings. And it's too much for the viewers as well. Like, I'm exhausted by it. She's like, nobody cares about me. My son went to college. And I know, like, that's probably very difficult for moms. I can imagine that that's, like, really sad, especially, like, she doesn't have her, ex-husband at home anymore with her, so she really is alone, probably in a literal mansion. So I can imagine that's lonely and isolating. But I don't know. It's it's not interesting to watch. I'm sorry. Everybody's divorces and situations are different. Like, every housewife is viewed in a different lens, where like someone might have their child going off to college and I'm like, oh my god, I feel so bad for you. Like Giselle, her girl's going off, I'm like, oh my god, that's a bummer. And I feel differently towards Sutton when she says the exact same thing. So again, every housewife can be seen in a different lens. And I did like that, like when the bear was broken on the floor, they just pan to Dorit and she just says, "I'm sick. I'm sick." Like that could have been like 4 months of Dorit's mortgage payment. And, she's just watching it shattered on the floor. The little Gucci bear's foot just lying there, and also like Jennifer Tilly's Tums falling out. And there was also just a wad of cash. And honestly, I feel like after seeing her with like her wad of cash, I really kind of want to start spending cash more. I think I'm going to go to the ATM right after this. But she had a crisp like 750 in cash in that thick wad, where mine will be like $50 in tens. Like it's gonna show volume when I'm like intentionally dropping my wads of cash on the floor, but when it really comes down to it, it is $5 $10 bills. And these days you can quite literally get nothing with $50, it feels like. So, you guys, this news story came across my desk from a very good friend who knows how I like to curate and knows that I take great pride in producing a great show. Elizabeth Smart. We talked about her a couple months ago because there was a Netflix documentary where Elizabeth Smart was in the documentary herself talking about her 9-month abduction by crazy cult Christian freaks in Utah. Ooh, I feel like Utah is becoming Florida light. Like, I feel like there's shit going down in Utah and I need to crack the case. And don't worry, you guys, I'm going on an Eat, Pray, Love hiking trip to Utah in like a month and a half. So I'm going to be boots on the ground. I'm going to be in Salt Lake City. I'm going to Park City. I'm going to Zion. I'm going to Moab. And I'm going to try to figure out what the fuck is going on in that state. Because as we all know, the Mormon wives are deeply troubled. Salt Lake City ladies, confusing, troubling, and just Mormons in general. I'm deeply fascinated. So I'm going to be doing some boots on the ground reporting there. But anyways, I got sidetracked. Elizabeth Smart, survivor, doing the best she can given a 9-month abduction when she was a child out of her childhood bedroom. But like so many other iconic queens who have been through the ringer, Teresa Giudice, Tamra Judge, Frank Catania, actually, he's been through a lot. He was disbarred. It was because I believe he was like cheating and scamming. But, that's still a blow. And now our Queen Elizabeth Smart has taken to bodybuilding as well. She is now competing in bodybuilding competitions and again in Salt Lake City. So God knows what's going on, behind the scenes there. But this past week, she revealed that she was in her 4th bodybuilding competition. She only started a year ago. And this was the first competition where she actually competed under her real married name. So, she's turning a new leaf. And, she's just basically saying, like, I am reclaiming my body. During her abduction, she was literally physically abused, starved, and endured daily rapes. So the fact that she has found a way to reclaim her body is inspiring. Reclaim the body. Get your spray painted spray tan on and strut your fucking stuff down that runway, bitch. Like, I am so proud of Elizabeth Smart. I think this is so cool. And it might seem like I'm being like facetious, but like, I genuinely am so happy for her because we all know it's very hard to even just put on a bathing suit in your bedroom, let alone get on stage with, your bodybuilding bikini. I'm assuming there's a specific type of bikini. It's like metallic looking. And again, you're so covered in spray tan that, you're probably physically uncomfortable and there's probably a smell to you as well. But she is like not letting any of that stuff stop her. She's not letting any, of her issues with her body and how it's been violated in the past get in the way of this new hobby. I just found this absolutely inspiring and I think it's amazing. Elizabeth, I'm so proud of you. The fuck? Sometimes I like pick these topics and I'm so excited to talk about them and then I like do all the research and then I get to the podcast and I'm like, what the fuck am I talking about? What are my notes? Reclaim that body, girl. Strut your fucking stuff down that runway, bitch. Like I don't know, but I think it's working. Like I feel like the people are liking it. I feel like I'm being heard and I feel like I'm being myself, which is ultimately the most important thing in the world. I know we've just talked about some powerful women. We talked about the Bechdel test, you guys. That's major. But we are going to be moving into some man content. We are entering the manosphere. And we don't have that many men listening. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say no man is listening. And if you are, you're the gayer of the flavors of man. So, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Of course, grateful. But as I mentioned, we're talking boys. This is Megan's Man Cave. So first we need to talk about a very deep cut. You guys know I'm obsessed with SiriusXM, and I listen to the Jeff Lewis show every single day. I've been obsessed with Flipping Out from the jump, and I'm so excited because Still Flipping Out just finished production. They just wrapped, and they, gave us a little bit of tea throughout the radio show of what's going to be happening on the main show, but it's an interesting and delicate dance to be recording a daily radio show where you are supposed to kind of talk about everything that's going on in your life, but then they are also filming a reality show where we're really supposed to see everything going on in Jeff and his team's life, but we're really not able to talk about what's happening on the radio show, and that's kind of his bread and butter. So I think listeners have been, itching for more information as to what drama is going to go down. There's a guy named Joey Zauzig who was once a chump with the Jeff Lewis crew, and then he was acting up and behaving poorly at some live events, and they kind of cut him off. He's been put on pause. Jamie Kennedy, the kind of lashed up, gross conspiracy guy, take a shower. I can smell your body odor from New Jersey. And he had a huge blowout fight with Mercedes Javid from Valley Persian Style, and he was slinging crazy shit. So he was put on pause, and a lot of these relationships are going to be playing out on the reality show as well. But most recently, Jeff ended up laying off Annie, who was one of his social media girlies. And, she was a hot young girl. And we all know Jeff loves a female sidekick. And any person who has watched Jeff for the past 15 years that he's been on our screens or through the radio, everybody knows Jeff needs his girly pop sidekick. And it will never end well for them, whether it was Jenny and then it was Megan. And then it seems like it was kind of Annie, where, he was very much into Annie. She's super funny. She has a lot of funny little quips on the show. She makes these social media videos and was doing a great job on his socials. But, I kind of always felt uh-oh, your next girlfriend. And all of a sudden, she ends up getting laid off after some work trip where I guess she wasn't getting her work done. And, honestly, business is business. If your boss, Jeff in this case, is taking you to a work trip in New York and flying you first class and you aren't producing the work that he's paying you to do while you're there, then, that is not okay. You're being paid to do a job, so you kind of have to do your job. And I guess this was the second or third time that this had happened on a work trip. So he had to cut bait. And I have to say, Jeff Lewis showed strength and he showed maturity because he didn't end up, blowing up their relationship too badly. Of course, he had some sass on the radio, but that's, to be expected. But I'm excited to see how that entire situation plays out on the show. We're all wanting to see how it plays out. And I mean, girl, I've been on work trips many a time, and especially in fabulous places, you're what the fuck am I doing working here? I should be having cocktails. I should be going to a museum. I should be doing whatever the fuck I want to be doing and not working. That's terrible. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that work is paying your bills. So you got to do it. But I mean, I love Jeff Lewis Live. I can't deny it. If you guys don't listen, it's on SiriusXM. But there's, of course, the regulars who are on the show. But I mean, to me, my favorite person on the show is Jameson Scala. He is the producer of the show. And, he chimes in here and there. And he's just so funny and sweet and such a team player and is willing to let Jeff, do his Jeffisms to Jameson. And Jameson is so seemingly sure of himself and confident in who he is that it's Teflon when Jeff is ripping him a new one or picking on his relationship or prying into his personal life, and Jameson just takes it with a grain of salt. And Jameson is New Jersey based. I honestly really want to get him on the show because I'm completely obsessed with him. I know. I'm like, wait. I told you guys, this is Megan's man cave, dipping my toe into the manosphere. But I feel like my appreciation of men in the arts is not obviously like incel aggro MAGA guy, but it's more like silly guys on the radio. Don't worry, we will be getting to the incel portion of this episode very soon. But I must touch on a few more topics beforehand. So again, SiriusXM, it's a deep underbelly of radio that I'm really deeply into, and I've also been listening to this other podcast called The Pete and Sebastian Show, hosted by Sebastian Maniscalco, the uber popular comedian now, and his longtime friend, Pete Corielli, who's also a comedian. They had a podcast for 13 years together. And I have been listening literally since episode 1. I was very obsessed with Sebastian in high school. Like, my aunt was like randomly a fan of his, and obviously like East Coast Italian, like he very much was like in the cultural conversation. Like, you cannot meet a couple in their 50s on Long Island who haven't seen Sebastian Maniscalco perform live. So I've always just been into him. And they've been podcasting for 13 years together throughout, Sebastian's whole rise from like being a fucking waiter at the Four Seasons to now, being mega successful. And so Sebastian is getting his own radio show on SiriusXM. Actually, not even a show. He's getting his own station. He's taking over the Raw Dog Network and is now going to be the Sebastian Maniscalco Network, which is like where they play comedy shows. They'll play like snippets of comedians and their specials. But in this migration to having his own network, he has basically cut Pete Corielli out of the branding for his podcast. And I'm sorry, the Sebastian Maniscalco show doesn't have the same ring as the Pete and Sebastian show. It just simply doesn't. And for us fans of the pod for 13 years and counting, I'm like really upset because, to be honest with you, Pete Corielli has been carrying that show for a very long time. So Pete is obviously like more of a low-key comedian. He's not a household name like Sebastian, but he is so goddamn funny and off the cuff funny. He is just really smart and clever and witty, and he's also Italian and Irish from Long Island, so I'm like very, very, very biased. I'm sorry. Long Island does produce some of the greatest entertainers, which is shocking considering like it's Long Island and it does get a bad rep here and there. But definitely a breeding ground for hilarious people, myself included. When the show started, they were both playing comedy clubs and then they both moved up to theaters. And obviously Sebastian has now like hit a level of comedic greatness where he's playing arenas. He's hosting the MTV Movie Awards, which like he did a terrible job, but like not his demo, besides the point. But Pete has always kind of stayed humble and true to who he is. He lives in upstate New York. He has a wife and a kid and a beautiful life, but a more simple life in comparison to Sebastian, who has gone full Hollywood. And sometimes it's not really fun to like listen to like rich people problems. And don't get me wrong, I've actually learned so many deeply chic things through listening to Sebastian and his wife's travels and, bougie lifestyle. Like, they live in like this insane mansion in California where I think like Kelly Wersler, who's a major celebrity or interior designer, did all the interiors for the house. I believe they were living in J-Lo's former house at one point, and they also lived in Gwen Stefani's former house. And so they're just Hollywood. And so the conversations have changed over the years, where they used to be two guys like coming up in comedy together, whereas now like Sebastian is like on another playing field, like so fucking successful that like I think it's like blinded him to, allow for this deal to split up the cast. Like, I understand like shit changes over time and business deals happen and you kind of have to do things and grow and change. I get that, but don't mess with Pete Corielli. Not in my fucking house, Sebastian. Justice for Pete Corielli. He still has a Patreon. I'm not a member, but I'm actually thinking about becoming one because I support the small guy out there. Like, I'm like upset about this. Like, I was telling my husband about it the other day, and I'm like, and then Pete, he posted a video and he's like, okay, babe, like fucking relax. Like, you don't know these people. But I do very much have parasocial relationships with people I listen to, whether it's Pete Corielli or even Jeff Lewis and all his little cronies or the Watch What Crappens guys. Like, okay, again, why do I only listen to podcasts hosted by white men? That's another conversation for another time. But even Chris Frangiola, like, you listen to these people for years on end. And so you automatically like feel like you're involved in their career steps, good or bad. And, I support you, Sebastian. Maybe I'll throw on your channel when I'm in the car. looking to laugh, but I'm upset. I'm like deeply upset, but we have to move on. We have to move on, everybody. Okay, Netflix. We love it. We hate it. But they came out with an interesting documentary called Red Hot Chili Peppers' Our Brother Hillel, which is a candid documentary tracing the formative years of the rock band Red Hot Chili Peppers. And this documentary really focused on the profound influence of the original bandmate Hillel. And he was their friend growing up. Like, all the guys knew each other from growing up in Los Angeles, just a bunch of hooligans hanging out in like the 80s in LA, like riding bikes and like doing drugs. Uh, it sounded fun. It sounded fun until it got dark, which is generally how many rock documentaries go. But the documentary was really talking about Hillel and his influence on Anthony and Flea and the gang, and how he really was like the master of the Red Hot Chili Peppers brand identity, and he really helped create the sound and their energy that, you know, people have come to know and love. Like, I'm a fucking fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, nothing can make me cry like Under the Bridge. Granted, it's again about like a guy like doing heroin under the bridge. I'm like in 8th grade, like in the fetal position, like crying in my bed to it. I'm going through my own problems. I didn't win treasurer of my 8th grade class. You know how fucking embarrassing that is? I don't even remember who won, but you know, I was going through hard times and the Red Hot Chili Peppers really carried me through. I was just really interested to find out the beginning portion of, you know, the band's success. And I will say, it really only touched on the first part of the band, which again was like Hillel's influence on the band. And then unfortunately, Hillel also was deeply entrenched in the drug world and ultimately ended up dying because of it. So I want to see like the future years where John Frusciante came in and, you know, the kind of current day form of Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I think that will be coming because the documentary's title is Red Hot Chili Peppers: Our Brother Hillel. And that sneaky little colon is telling me that there are probably going to be more parts of this series to come. And I mean, say what you will about Anthony Kiedis, he could be a creep, and we'll get into that a little bit more. He was a former drug addict, and he came out with a book many moons ago that was all about his trials and tribulations of, you know, being a kid, growing up in LA, finding himself in the wrong crowds, the drugs, the partying, the rock and roll, you know, the completely like, you know, disregarding his job and, you know, the band's expectations of him and like the rise to fame and all of it. It's a really fascinating book. And I read it back when I was in college, and I was the assistant to this like very, very kooky heiress. Like, I will talk about that someday on a Patreon because I think I signed an NDA. But she was literally a heiress, and she always had construction going on her beautiful Central Park West home. And there were just like always dudes in and out. And there was one like lead contractor who was my homie. I would always like work with him to schedule times for him to come or whatever. And one day I was like, being is so fucking cute. Like, hindsight, like during my lunch break, it was a gorgeous day on the Upper West Side. And I had my Anthony Kiedis book, and I was just like plopped down on the steps of a brownstone. Like, who's brownstone? I don't know. But I said, I'm going to pop a squat and maybe, you know, skim like 3 or 4 pages. Like, I'm going to let the world know that I can read. And so the general contractor ended up walking past me while he saw me reading, and he was like, oh my God, look at you. Like, you know how to read. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like 19 and he's like 67. I'm like, yeah, I read. The next time I saw him, he gave me a $50 Barnes & Noble gift card. And it could have been a little creepy at the time. I just saw it as a fun, you know, gifting moment. But hindsight, I'm like, was he flirting with me? Probably a little bit. And that $50 Barnes & Noble gift card obviously was used for good. I naturally wouldn't buy a fucking book there. You know, I was like buying Starbucks and like a candle and a fucking bookmark for a book I'll never read with my $50 gift card. But you know what? It's my money. I earned it by cosplaying, you know, a chic girl sitting on a brownstone step reading a book. But I do remember reading that book and enjoying it. And a lot of the controversy that kind of comes around that book, of course, is like his treatment to others and like his aggressive drug abuse. Like, whatever, moving on. But at one point he talks about being like 24 years old, I think, and dating like a 14-year-old. So like that's questionable. So now Anthony Kiedis's proclivities have been kind of coming back around because he's now dating a girl named Eileen Kelly, who is a sex and dating writer for Vogue, and they have a 33-year-old age gap. And she recently wrote an article in Vogue about it called "My Boyfriend is Double My Age." And it's interesting because, one, this is an opinion piece, I should preface, but the article actually never says either of their ages, of course, by design. So naturally, I did a little, I did my own research. He is 63 years old, and she's 30 years old. So that's a 33-year gap, me loves. Like, that's a big amount of time. And recently I heard on Jeff Lewis' podcast, fucking kill me, this woman called in and she was like, everyone was picking on Patti Stanger this past week. If you're interested in Patti Stanger lore, and if you've always wanted to ask Patti Stanger, like, how do you tell other people how to be in relationships when, like, you cannot keep one yourself? A caller literally called in and asked her, and then, like, the whole panel was, like, kind of being mean to her. It was bleak. But this woman called in to defend Patti and basically was like, I don't want to be a man's purse or his nurse. And that has stuck with me, and that's going to be something I think that will be sticking with me forever. But I think there's a bit of, like, the nurse aspect that, like, maybe I'm deeply lacking an empathy chip, which, like, we all know this at this point, let's be real. But I don't want to be an old man's nurse. Like, Eileen and Anthony Kiedis, like, I hope you guys are happy. I hope it's great. And I hope you guys are thriving. But, you know, in 10 years, she's going to have a 74-year-old on her hand, a 74-year-old former drug addict who, like, hasn't gotten the hint that he needs to get a haircut. Like, I feel like in 10 years, she's going to be like, why did I waste so many years with you? Now I'm quite literally your nurse putting your medication for your high blood pressure on your nightstand before you go to bed so you don't forget. Like, I don't want to be a nurse and I don't want to be a purse. I don't want to be spending all my money on a stupid guy. And Eileen kind of goes into this, like, power dynamic between couples who have massive age differences. You know, she's not really reinventing the wheel here, being like, it's hypocritical because many women date men decades younger than them. And I'm like, yeah, but is Cher, you know, who's dating like a 26-year-old, like, are we really thinking that Cher is losing anything here? Like, she's only gaining like a hot young thing to go to parties with her. Whereas like Eileen dating this older man is possibly like losing things that she might want in her life. And again, I don't know what this girl wants. Maybe she wants kids, maybe she wants stability, maybe she wants, you know, 35 plus years with a partner, which like she's not gonna get. And she says, you know, my boyfriend is more than twice my age, which is either alarming or impressive depending on who you ask. Okay. She continues on to say, there is something to be said for a man who simply had more time to get his shit together. And which, like, hilarious because she's talking about Anthony fucking Kiedis, who has wrote a 400-page book about how he did not have his life together. And and this isn't to say, like, people can't change, people can't grow up, but, like, he's a fucking rock star who's probably always on the brink and who's always probably a little bit psychotic, like, regardless of, like, the, you know, drugs or alcohol involved, but, like, fame and money also do a number on your brain. So she's like, you guys, this wouldn't have been working out so much if he just didn't have his shit together. But she said, my much older boyfriend seems genuinely excited to be with me. Not like he's biding his time before he could swipe for someone better. Because she's not like the other sugar babies, you guys. She's like, those girls don't even have their guys like them. He's obsessed with me. He loves me. And again, you know, maybe that's true and love is love. And we'll be talking a lot about love and the parameters of love on the Summer House updates episode, which you guys will be getting early this week. But like, I don't know. I just feel like a 33-year age gap is kind of bleak. Let's not forget Erica Jane and Tom Girardi. Like, it's all fun and games until, you know, your 86-year-old husband is, you know, dying in prison. Well, you're like still kind of hot and you're like thinking, why the fuck did I hitch my horse onto this cart all of those moons ago, and now I'm just stuck in this weird situation. So Eileen's not like the other girls, you know, her man's likes her, and you know what, Mazel Tov, I think it's fine, who cares, it's not my fucking life. But I will say, she said one of the most shocking aspects of being in an age gap relationship has been the unsolicited commentary in public. It happens in passing. Is that your dad? Or directed at him with a performative smile. Your daughter is so beautiful. The remarks come with a cheerful bluntness, suggesting a certain satisfaction at having correctly identified the matter at hand, and it's incredibly awkward every time. Yeah, I don't think that would ever become something that you as a couple could be comfortable with. But hey, if you're willing to deal with that, mazel tov. I'm so happy for you. I'm excited to stay tuned to see if there will be more Netflix Red Hot Chili Peppers documentaries on the horizon. I keep my ear to the ground. I'm always on the pulse. Speaking of pulses, someone who doesn't have a pulse, Hulk Hogan has a new documentary on Netflix that I'm gonna be watching. But that's content that I can consume with my husband. We save those for special nights. That's a on the couch popcorn moment, like we're both watching something where we're both not using our second device. Like sometimes a show's on in the background and I can be on my computer or on my phone, but I feel like Hulk Hogan gets my full attention. Okay, you guys, we've talked about Brian Johnson, the 48-year-old man who's obsessed with living forever. He's a longevity obsessive who is spending about $2 million every year to try and attempt to reverse his biological age. Brian Johnson was also the guy who kind of wants to suck his son's blood. Like, his son, whose name is Talmadge, which will never get old to me, is a 19 or 20-year-old at this point who's just like the human specimen of what Brian wants to be. So he's trying to reverse age to be his son Talmadge, basically. But that's longevity maxing. But now there seems to be something else called looks maxing. Basically, it is a subculture community online, of course. It's a digital community that is entirely devoted to achieving male beauty at literally any cost. And there's this guy online called Clavicular, called Clav for short, who is now like the 20-year-old, ambassador to this new blooming community. And so Clav is 6'2", weighs 180, has a 31-inch waist. His biochromial width, which is basically the span of the clavicles, is about 19.5 inches, which I guess is optimal. His whole branding is around his clav, and he does have a bit of a nice clav. So Clav is actually, his real name is Braden Peters. He's from New Jersey, and I just can't imagine being, like, the only child of two successful people, like, living in Hoboken, giving your kid a good life in New Jersey, and they turn into a looks-maxing icon. It's ridiculous. And of course, there's a bit of truth to, like, being attractive. We all know that being attractive gives you a certain social currency, pretty people's disease. I think the best example of, hotness really working for you is Jon Hamm in 30 Rock, where Jon Hamm is boyfriend of Tina Fey, and he's obviously so ridiculously good looking, very much a hall pass kind of guy for me. He's so ridiculously good looking that he could be bad at his job, bad in bed, bad at pretty much everything, but like no one will ever tell him because he's so goddamn gorgeous. And so Clav himself really rose to prominence because he was very active in a message board community devoted to looks maxing. And of course, this is just like a weird niche community that are really just like taking extreme measures to improve one's attractiveness at all costs. And so this guy has kind of become famous online, which is like really shocking and scary for the future of young men out there who are like, oh, I must be hot to get any sort of, worldly achievement in this lifetime. Like, I will only achieve full world domination if I'm sexy. And these techniques to looks max isn't just like diet and exercise. He's not like, you guys sleep more, you guys no smoking and minimize your drinking. He's very much pushing facial bone smashing, getting cosmetic plastic surgery, taking anabolic steroids and lipo-dissolved products, as well as just using meth. He's like, meth makes you skinny. And again, we're looking for optimal hotness, which again in our society is stick thin. If you are 1 point over your BMI, then you unfortunately cannot be a looks maxer. I'm not unfortunately even able to be considered to be looks maxing. I get facials like once every 3 months. So that's like one of my looks maxing techniques. But I mean, I'm terrified of the bone smashing thing. He's literally taking a mallet and smashing his jawline to try to beat down the bone to give himself a better jawline. And I will say, a jawline is hard to come by these days. And as I've been on my own, yeah, I guess I am kind of looks maxing. I'm really trying to lean into being hot these days. And finding your bone structure after a little bit of weight, dissolves from your face is amazing. I've found a new power while finding my jawline. And he's also somebody who is convincing people to chew jaw defining gum, which I guess is basically like a piece of fucking taffy or something that is so difficult to chew that, again, I guess you are moving your jaw muscles in a certain way to help define that very, very fat jaw of yours. I mean, the meth for anorexic prop, using meth to get skinny, that's a tale as old as time. We've heard of that. But again, he's taking steroids, he's taking these other pills, and has been injecting shit into his body for years. And I might just want to mention before we talk about what recently happened to Clav, but again, like, he is a total nobody, but like, this is what I'm deeply interested in these days. So thank you so much for listening to I Know You Didn't Ask. Nobody asked, but I'm telling you anyways. But there's also some looks maxing lingo that I really think we should level set on before we get into the deep dark updates. But ascending in looks maxing is basically like becoming a more handsome version of yourself, which is like entering a new echelon of hotness. And then one of the main parts of his lingo that has really like grown in prominence is mogging other men, which is basically standing next to another guy and making them look deeply common in comparison. Mogging to him basically just means like being the hottest guy amongst a bunch of uggos. And the sad part is that he's a handsome guy, but he's not that hot. And it must really suck to like only care about, competing with other guys to be hot in your day to day. Like, that's all he really cares about. Then I actually saw a video where he lost a mogging competition with this like real hottie from a college wrestling team. This guy's 20 years old. So like, this is also creepy that I'm also like watching the mogging videos, and this guy, is posting videos of everything, not just like losing mogging competitions, but he's like live streaming everything, which kind of brings us to some footage that came out this past week of Clav actually ODing and having a seizure in a nightclub in Miami. And we all know, like, in the club, we are all fam. And so I am glad people took care of him and, like, got him out of the club and, like, put him into an ambulance. But, like, there were videos on TikTok of his seizure that, like, didn't know I was going to stumble upon. Like, I just didn't know there was footage, and it was really sad. So again, like, I'm glad people took care of him to get out of there. He's 20 years old and, like, obviously deeply confused, prefrontal cortex, like, not developed, clearly. So seeing him have this, like, very serious OD when he's, like, full of miscellaneous pills, steroids, meth, and drinking and all of it, and having an overdose in a club is pretty fucking scary and a telltale sign that, like, things aren't okay. Like, things might not be as hot as he would like. The very next day after he OD'd in the club, he was back in another Miami club where he was dancing on stage with the rapper Blueface, who, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the song Bust Down Tatiana, but he is the singer of Bust Down Tatiana. And so Clav and Blueface are hanging out together. He's back, baby. This kid can rally, but I will say it's like completely too far. Like, this desire to be hot and thinking that that's the only thing that's going to help you be successful in this world is like so deeply misunderstood, and also like just screams such like deep-seated insecurity about yourself and how you feel like you have nothing to offer other than, like, I guess, gorgeous clavicle bones, which, like, again, I'm not denying. If my clavicles were a little bit protruding a little bit more, I might look sexier in a few tops. And I wouldn't turn down the experience. I would love to see my clavicle again. Again, jawline is where we're starting. Clavicle, those bones might be gone for life. Like, I don't know if I can ever see my clavicle again, and I'm completely fine with that. I'm not going to start, doing meth just so I can see my clavicle. But it is really sad because it seems like his publicist is also stepping down. He said, I'm no longer going to be representing the streamer unless he checks himself into a treatment center. And the kid's not even 21 years old. So, like, I wonder if he's going to the nightclub with, like, one of those, like, neon bracelets that's, like, under 21. Like, how is this guy doing meth and, like, getting to the point of, like, overdosing in clubs? And again, I know, like, it's easy for underage people to get into clubs. I'm not a fool. Don't treat me like a fool. I know it's easy, especially for, like, a quote-unquote famous person to get into a club underage. But it seems like it's also, like, a very bad look for this Miami nightclub to, like, allow whatever he's doing in the nightclub, whatever level of partying he's doing, at his age to be monitored. Like, where are your parents, Clav? It's uncomfortable, but he's young and he's stupid and he's like absolutely ruining his life by like having this be his brand. But I am not his parent, so I can't tell him anything. Of course, I'm going to always be keeping my finger on the pulse of the looks maxing community. Any new updates on like how to look hot in a really dangerous way, I will always be there to tell you. But again, like, let's value being just alive in general than being hot, but like fucking dead. Like, I think that's important, and I hope with time he can, try to realize that it's not all about how you look. It's on what's in the inside that counts. And I forgot to mention that his number one hottie in his eyes is Matt Bomer, who basically has like the Superman face, like a chiseled jaw, hair with a gorgeous little curled wave moment, like perfect blue eyes. Like, he's fucking hot. And it's sad that like Clav is like, I am going to do anything in my power to look like Matt Bomer. Please make me look like Matt Bomer. And I don't know, again, he's hot, but like, he's not like people's hottest person for me. He has Superman face, very like Christopher Reeve, bone structure, gorgeous, classic white man face. I think after, years of trying to look smacks, I think Clav basically just said like, Matt Bomer has like the most harmonious man's face in existence. And he said even beyond his own. He's like, obviously Bomer's like number one hottie in the group. I'm number two. But this unfortunately like inspired Clav to get a fucking double jaw surgery so that he has a gorgeous jawline as well. So again, like, he's taking it to another level and normalizing this type of extreme body modification to young, impressionable men who really are starting to truly believe that, like, if you don't start smashing your jawline with a hammer, like, you're never going to be successful and you're never going to get, like, a hot girl. Like, unless you start, like, taking really aggressive measures into elevating your hotness. So I'm going to go pick up my hammer and start hammering away at my fat fucking face. I don't know why I've been so fascinated by Clavicular, Clav, whatever we're calling him, but again, we hope you're on the up and up. Fortunately, it seems like the kid has a lot of growing up to do. I sound like an old lady, but I really think, people need to step in. This is a good time for a little intervention. Like, I think we need to cut the credit cards, get him into a bit of a Britney Spears conservatorship situation just for like 6 months. Like, let's put the phone down. Let's not stream. Remove all hammers from the house and just heal. I think you need to come back to Jersey and heal with your mother. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to I Know You Didn't Ask. I appreciate you guys hanging with me. And you guys, I will say, since I have released the expectation of putting out an episode on any day of the week, and I'm just doing what I want and putting out episodes when I can, I've actually found a new freedom. I found freedom and I found happiness, and I'm so happy for myself. We have another great episode coming this week where we talk Summer House, Real Housewives of Rhode Island, and The Valley. Coming to you early this week with the ladies from Crime, Cocktails, and Bravo podcast. So be sure to check out our episode that we did together on their feed just a few weeks ago, because we'll be talking about all the same topics just 3 weeks later. So we're going to be able to see, the progression of time, where we were and where we are now. And obviously, Amanda West updates, the Yankee game, the leaked audio. There is so much to fucking cover and more. So be sure to subscribe and keep tuning into I Know You Didn't Ask, because you guys, I found a studio. I'm recording in a studio. I'm making my investments. I'm going to get a new logo. I'm just making a big fucking investment. You guys, the money I'm making for my job, I'm saving my money and I'm investing in my future, because this is the future and the future is bright. Even if your biochromial width is at 19.5 inches, you still can be successful in this world. You could still have a great life. We can look smacks light. Like, we look smacks light here. We like get our nails done. We blow dry our hair. We get a facial every few months. Like, we're look smacksing in a healthy way. So thank you for listening. Keep look smacksing. Keep being really hot, and have a great rest of your day. Bye. New episodes of the I Know You Didn't Ask podcast are out every Monday and Friday, available wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube.